What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch news roundup today. A lot of it surrounding the Overwatch League because that's what's been popping recently. Popping off on Twitter, though, is the famous former pro CSGO player turned Battle Royale streamer phenom, Shroud, who tweeted out this disparaging gif, a bit of a grimace or a yikes face, cringing at the Overwatch League. And everybody's favorite pro player, Dafran, clapped back and said, "Go and play your Fortnite tourneys, Shroud." Yeah, that's right, Dafran. You stand up for Overwatch League. It's actually the best thing Overwatch has going. Like Dafran, most of the Overwatch community wasn't having it from Shroud, but the streamer did go on to explain himself, said this on his stream.
Dude, so many people were triggered by my Overwatch tweet. They didn't even know what I meant, though. People were mad. They didn't understand what I meant. But that was the point. That's why I kept it like that. I kept it nice and vague so that people thought I was like ragging on the game, which I was kind of. But
you want that?
I mean, it's not really like the game isn't bad. It's just a bad meta right now. That's all.
I'm not gonna use it.
A doo-doo meta when you watch Overwatch. Yeah. Like that game could be so much fun to watch. Yeah, but the devs decide to have the meta ever. It's okay. It's garbage. You can say it. No, it's a great game. It really is. Just the devs don't know what the f they're doing. They don't know how to make a fun viewing experience. That's all. It's literally probably as easy as just like listening to the pros. I bet you the pros don't like it either. I don't know too much about Overwatch, but I could probably guarantee you that the pros don't even like their own meta that they have to play.
Now, we talk about balance enough on this channel, so instead of getting into it, we're just going to move on. But more to Fran news. Sad to say, we were all wondering if Dafran's mental health would be able to stay in a stable spot moving into the Overwatch League, and just 3 days ago, it seems like he was considering quitting again.
That as someone who struggles with anxiety/PTSD, I'm really proud of you for sticking with Atlanta and for all you've accomplished thus far. Thank you for everything. Heart.
Dude, no, the extra for $5, dude. Dude, you have no idea. I was so close to quitting. Like 3 days ago, I was so close to quitting. But I talked to the fucking sports psychologist thingy, and she talked me out of it. Dude, I was so close, dude. Brainwashed to stay. Maybe. The sports psychologist we have, he talks to like professional football players and stuff. People who make millions, and they're depressed too, and they want to quit too and stuff. I'm not depressed, but they're depressed too. Some people are.
I gotta say, man, it probably feels good to let your audience in on this stuff, but I'm a bit concerned because we're only 2 weeks in. There's 4 stages to go, and really, this isn't testing Dafran as a player, but developing as a human being. Because when we have these problems with anxiety, depression, or whatever the case may be, avoiding self-destructive behavior just becomes a way of life. This is something Dafran's going to have to conquer as the league goes on. Well, with any luck, the calming Stardew Valley streams can help be a form of meditation, hopefully, but the biggest tip that I have for Dafran or anybody who's struggling with this kind of stuff is exercise. A lot of us gamers don't get enough exercise, and it's horrible for your mental state. I should know this is the thing that I struggle with the most. I hate making time for it. I'd much rather be at the computer on the grind, making videos, doing research, editing for many, many hours on end. And when you're doing that, or being a pro player or whatever that requires you to sit down at a desk a lot, it really takes a toll on your physical and mental health, which really is the same thing. Practically indistinguishable, and that's something that I didn't know growing up as a kid. But you want to fix one, you likely have to fix the other. Okay, things were getting real here for a second. Time to jump right back into the trash talk. Overwatch League coach for the Dallas Fuel, Jayne, when watching the very first match of the Overwatch League in week 1, London versus the Philadelphia Fusion, said this on Twitter: "Their GOATS was trash." Let's call it what it was. Their GOATS was trash. And just off to the side, I think we can conclude now that a lot of teams don't have very good triple tank, triple support comps in the Overwatch League, and they're starting to definitely develop and improve. But week 1, it was looking shaky, but Carpe clapped back saying, well, I hope he's ready to lose to some trash goats. He said in a pregame interview that after they win, he's going to find the situation really funny. But the matchup came and went, and the Dallas Fuel, well, they kind of clobbered them like fish in a barrel, only losing a map when they took out the big boss AKM, which is interesting because there's some of these players, AKM even soon, these old rogue boys from pre-Overwatch League who are seeing newfound success in the GOATS meta. AKM's looking better than he's looked in like a year and a half, popping off on Zarya and even flexing on the Widow at times. After their win, Jayne in the post-game interview capped off his trash talk by saying this.
In this case, so what do you have to say?
Well, I do a lot of analysis on my Twitch channel. I talk about teams, good and bad, and it's the team's own fault if they get offended by the truth.
Whoa, that was spicy. I loved it.
And actually, probably my favorite thing of all of this is Taimu tweeting out this is trash goats on Twitter. Ha, get wrecked, Fusion. Moving on to our next story, you may have heard that the Shanghai Dragons finally got their first victory. Their combined 2-season record now is 1-42. And I want to make this clear before we get into the story that I think even if things were different and Boston did get to play Fusions, Shanghai Dragons had them downloaded, playing a ton of Sombra, which was very strong when NYXL used it up against Boston, even when Fusions was in. Not to mention, Gamsu really looks at home playing with the Kongdu Panthera lineup. Shanghai Dragons have severely upgraded overnight with Gamsu fitting right in, and now that they have a main tank and a guy with good decision making, they're going to be a contender. Like, let's just be honest, like all the teams are contenders right now. Everybody's beating everybody. But still, taking that big fat L is going to be a bit sour for Boston Uprising because they were planning to put in Fusions, who is the main tank star who made Team UK so surprising at the World Cup, famous for his shot calling. And as it turns out, Boston were a bit blindsided by this rule because Fusions came in on a two-way contract, which has a stipulation in it that most people knew but didn't realize that it was going to count right now. So, the language of the rule requires for a player on a two-way contract to only be able to sub in for a stage of Overwatch League for 2 games max if they just played in Contenders. But the language of that is a bit ambiguous to the point where it's counting the previous season from Contenders, a month or 2 ago? Which I don't think people realized, especially Boston, who expected to be able to use the main tank, who's who they've been scrimming with. He's their main caller. Probably the heart and blood of this team rides on Fusion's ability to understand the GOATS meta and make Boston competitive. So at the last minute, they had to put in Axiom, and they just looked essentially clueless, frankly. Like, they had no plan in a lot of team fights, and they were just getting farmed by the Sombra, which, again, may have happened even with Fusions, but it definitely would have been a lot more competitive if he were playing. Now, this coverage comes from Yiska, writing over on VP Esports, but also says that Fusions now is in negotiations for a big boy contract, so he actually can start, which I think is a must-have for Boston to have any chance in this meta, because Fusions is so familiar with it, playing in the World Cup and in Contenders. Now, after a bit of a fallout for all of this, the Overwatch League did respond with an official comment, essentially apologizing for the confusion, saying, unfortunately, the league office did not determine he was ineligible until shortly before Boston's match was set to begin, and we apologize for that oversight. In the league's defense, this rule was set up well in advance, but I don't think any of us really understood what it means. I mean, who reads fine print? I always assumed it was so that players couldn't bounce between Contenders and Overwatch League while it was on, because it messes with the roster, you don't know who you're playing up against, and that makes sense. But why would it apply to Contenders Season 3, which was quite a while ago? Well, it does, unfortunately for Boston. Now, to close out the video, we're going to comment a bit on what's been going on in the Overwatch League. If you haven't watched it, turns out all power rankings are bunk, at least for this first 2 weeks, because everybody has been beating everybody. It doesn't make any sense. It's pandemonium. You can't predict it, and it's driving analysts insane. This was posted on the Overwatch League subreddit by Dr. Foe, and you see how the triangles for which team beat what goes in a big circle? Well, that doesn't develop a hierarchy like any teams coming out above the rest, other than maybe like NYXL and Paris right now, Vancouver, all of whom are undefeated currently, but there's other results that just don't make any sense, like Houston Outlaws losing in Map 5 to Boston and Toronto, who should be weaker teams, but then somehow stomping the Hangzhou Spark, who is supposed to be a really strong team. San Francisco Shock destroy Dallas, lose to Gladiators, who in turn lose to Seoul, who lose to Dallas, who Shock destroyed. Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no consistency whatsoever. This is so nutty that I tweeted out my revised power rankings. Jokes aren't funny if you have to explain them, I guess, but they're all in the same tier because we don't know. Okay, all joking aside, the rest of that part of the video was recorded before some really crucial games got played that I think helped add some serious stability to know who's on top. As it turns out, there is a ton of teams that could take games off each other any day of the week, but a few are pulling ahead of the pack. Originally, NYXL didn't look so hot in GOATS meta until they came into play Houston this week, where their precision with their combos, engages, aggression, peeling, and then, oh yeah, they have Jonek, one of the best Zarya's too. They stopped looking middling like they haven't practiced the comp, and then they looked like they turned up to 11 and said, oh yeah, we are the best team in the world. Remember us from last year? Yeah, they look devastating. And as well, the Vancouver Titans just played the San Francisco Shock, who tons of analysts said were going to be world beaters. Well, turns out the South Korean Contenders team is still undefeated and kind of manhandled the Shock. Although the series was close, they made all the clutch plays to win the series 3-1. So the Shock are definitely a top team, but not up there in the S-tier teams who right now, I think most people would agree, are some order of NYXL, Vancouver Titans, and Paris Eternal. Anybody else out of the 20 teams probably could end up upsetting on the day, but those three are the top dogs that you got to look out for in Stage 1. Overwatch writer and analyst Benchmob tweeted out his updated power rankings now with 2 weeks played, which is actually the halfway point for many teams because you only play 7 matches in a given stage. A lot of them have played 4 already, so this is a good time to take their temperature, so to speak. And I'm going to largely agree with his top 10. I would change it around a bit, putting NYXL up top, Vancouver, then Paris. But a lot of people I think are going to debate about the Seoul pick, but I agree. Maybe Toronto's a little higher, Spark is a little lower. But either way, I think this is a good gauge of who the real playmakers are right now in Stage 1. And something to keep in mind, something that's a bit problematic with evaluating the strength of teams is that not everybody plays everybody. So that makes it kind of hard to figure it out. Over the course of the entire season, you play the other division once and everyone in your division twice. So there are some teams that have ridiculously hard schedules and others that have a bit easier. For example, the Valiant are really getting the short end of the stick and aren't rising to the occasion for sure, but are playing a lot of higher ranked teams as well, making it hard to evaluate. But in any case, although I might nitpick Benchmob's top 10 power rankings, it's not like there's anybody in the bottom 10 that I think need to be pushed up. But we'll talk more about that in future videos. If you guys did enjoy this one, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where I tweet out our Overwatch League predictions. I'm right half of the time, so at least you can come see why I'm guessing at one team over the other. Anyway, guys, that's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.